What's going on, folks? This is Clayton over at AndroidAuthority.com. Today I'm bringing you a head-to-head comparison of the Samsung Galaxy S3 versus the HTC Evo 4G LTE. Now, before we get into any comparison, just want to say that this HTC Evo 4G LTE, of course, is the predecessor to Sprint's original HTC Evo 4G. This one has the long-term evolution, but it's a huge step up from the original Sprint version. This is the version, by the way, with all of our hardware, our kickstand, and you can see that they've made it bigger, they've built it better. Still got the same scheme though, and it's a really nice phone. Okay, so getting down to these two phones, our Samsung Galaxy S3 is the GTI 9300, now that's the International Unlocked version, the GSM, and our HTC Evo 4G LTE is running on Sprint's 4G LTE network. As you can see, Sprint logo, meaning it will have some bloatware. Okay, so the HTC Evo 4G LTE has a 4.7-inch HD Super LCD screen with Corning's Gorilla Glass 1, and our Samsung Galaxy S3 has a 4.8-inch Super AMOLED display, and both of these have 1280 by 720p resolution. The HTC Evo 4G LTE has 312 pixels per inch, where the Samsung Galaxy S3 has 306 ppi. But being a tiny bit bigger display, of course we're probably going to see the smaller pixel density on the Galaxy S3. Now, looking over the actual build of both of these phones, you can see we have the white version of our Samsung Galaxy S3, and we have the black and red schemed version, only available color for the Evo 4G LTE. Now, anyways, just shut these two off so we can go over that. The thickness of these phones are just about the exact same. They weigh, just about the exact same in the palm of my hand. They both feel really solid and heavy. They're both built very nice. Now, of course, on the back of the HTC Evo 4G, we have some actual metal accents going around the edges, and of course, our kickstand to use for watching media and whatnot. But the accents on the Samsung Galaxy S3, are not actual metal. Now, anyways, popping off anything removable from these two phones, we've got our top that pops off of our Evo 4G LTE, and nothing else is removable. But we do have our micro SD expansion slot right here on the Evo 4G. Pop our protector back on here. Whoops, I have to do it from the bottom. Excuse me. And then on the back of the Samsung Galaxy S3, of course, we peel it off, and we've got our micro SD slot and our SIM card slot. And both of these are enabled with NFC with the stock batteries. Okay, so on the front of these two devices, you see we have our three haptic buttons down here. We have our recent window, our home, and our back button. Whereas on the Samsung Galaxy S3, we have our back, our home, and our menu button. So looking at the two devices' lock screens, we can see that we can easily access apps without unlocking the phone. On the HTC Evo 4G, we can access our phone, mail, messages, and camera. And on the Galaxy S3, we can access our phone, our chat on, our web browser, and our camera. Now on the HTC Evo 4G, you're going to want to grab an app, and we can move it into the circle. You can see the silhouette of it to open it. And on the Samsung Galaxy S3, we grab an app and swipe up. But anyways, to unlock each of these phones, you just grab the circle on the Evo 4G LTE, bring it up anywhere, and it unlocks. And on the Galaxy S3, we swipe to unlock. We'll go home. So you can see both of the home screens are very different. We're running different native widgets, being that we have the Sense 4.0 overlay on the HTC Evo 4G LTE, and we have the TouchWiz 4 on the Samsung Galaxy S3. Now, both of these are skins or manufacturer overlays, as you may call them, that run on top of the Android 4.0 ice cream sandwich operating system that each of these phones also possesses. Now, anyways, we can go right into our app drawer. You can see it's definitely set out a little differently. It's laid out. Anyways, on the Galaxy S3, we can scroll through our apps. We do have the infinite scrolling with only two tabs, being the apps and the widgets. Now, on HTC Sense, that's a little different. We can scroll, but it's not infinite. And we are categorized with our frequently used apps, and our downloaded apps. Now, right from each of the docks and the app drawers here, we can access our settings by pressing the menu here. And we will press our menu here on the Galaxy S3. That's where we have the option to sort, share, manage apps, edit tabs. Here we can access the Play Store, we can edit, we can uninstall, we can go to our downloaded applications like that. and we can go home on each. Anyways, if you notice, the native widget for weather on the Galaxy S3 we have right here. We've got our time and our weather, and then of course we have HTC's classic flip clock here. Pulling down the status bar on each phone, you can see we have some toggles on the Galaxy S3 that aren't available on the HTC Evo 4G. We can go through and select our Wi-Fi, our GPS, the screen rotation, stuff like that, and of course we have our notifications. We can access our settings easily from each of the status bars, where they have all of the same settings basically, but they're skinned differently, of course, due to the Sense TouchWiz differences. Now we can access our airplane mode, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. They each have the data usage. Under more settings for each of these phones, we can enable our NFC and our Android Beam, as well as the S Beam on the Galaxy S3. We have our personalization options on the HTC Evo 4G LTE. Now under that settings menu, we can change the scene, where we have our sprint options, HTC, social, work, play, and travel. I just kept it on the sprint. We have our skin, our wallpaper, our default lock screen style. Now this isn't the only way you can access these options, but this is just a nice way of doing so right from the settings menu. So we'll go back. We have our sound options, our display options. Now one thing I dislike about the Galaxy S3 is that the display option, when you go to the brightness, it is not a master brightness as it is on the HTC Evo 4G. You have to choose basically in-app brightness on the Galaxy S3. But anyways, we've got our wallpaper, LED indicator. We've got our power saving feature on each of these. Of course, we have our developer options, being that they're both ice cream sandwich devices. Language and keyboard, storage, app managers. We each have gestures on here. We can go to our gestures there. It's under the motion settings on the Galaxy S3. We have our shake to update. We can palm swipe to screen cap. Here's our brightness options for our Evo 4G LTE. We have our HTC gestures, enable 3-finger output to ignore gestures with more fingers. We have our sound options. The HTC Evo 4G does come with Beats Audio. Now, those can be experienced by plugging in a set of headphones or some speakers. They don't work through the actual external speaker, the hardware of the phone. We can go to the About device on each. That's a little more difficult to navigate to the things we want on the HTC, but that's just because of the Sense. We'll want to go to our firmware information, software information that is. We see we're running Android 4.0.3 with our HTC Sense version 4.0. Now on the Galaxy S3 we have 4.0.4, and we have the TouchWiz version 4.0. Now the speed of these phones is going to be around the exact same, but we have our international version of the Galaxy S3, which features a 1.4 quad-core processor, the Exynos chipset, and then our Evo 4G LTE, which is running the Snapdragon S4. Now the performance is going to be very similar because a lot of the US variants, in fact all of them for the Samsung Galaxy S3, are going to be running the same Snapdragon S4 processor. So we're going to see power bands about the exact same. But as far as the two phones as they are, being the international version against the HTC, we will just do a quadrant test. Now before I do the quadrant test, I'm just going to kill all of our recent apps. We press the recent apps button on HTC. We have our nice Sense interface. And then we hold the home button on the Galaxy S3, where we can swipe to remove, or we can easily just remove all. Now we'll just have to shoot them up on the Evo 4G LTE here, which is sort of a tedious process. I'd give that hands down to the Galaxy S3. But anyways, we'll just run our quadrant tests. It looks like I'd already done one on there. We'll just put them head to head, run full benchmark, set them here. See which one will actually finish faster. So as we see in our benchmark scores, there's not that much of a difference. We got 5,561 on the Galaxy S3, and we got 5,058 on the HTC Evo 4G LTE. That's not a huge difference for 2 extra cores in the Samsung Galaxy S3. And the 1.5 gigahertz Snapdragon did really well in the HTC Evo. Now, mind you, the US variant and the US variant of the Galaxy S3 will have the same processor, but it will also have 2 gigabytes of RAM as opposed to the 1 gigabyte included in the HTC Evo 4G. Anyways, let's test out some of the other hardware. We've got great cameras on each of these. Let's test out our 8 megapixel rear camera on each. We had our little motion and gestures disclaimer right there on the Samsung Galaxy S3. But right away you can see that we just are tracking our whiteboard here. The settings for each camera are located up in the top left on the Galaxy S3, just there on the top for the Evo 4G LTE. Now on the Evo 4G LTE, this is where we're going to choose whether or not we want to use our main camera or our front camera. We can choose our self-timer, our image resolution. We've got it on the highest set there for the 8 megapixel. You can choose full HD video quality, review duration. Got our white balance. We got our continuous shooting mode. Here's our camera options, and we have our video options. The resolution there by 16 by 9. Anyways, we've got our touch to focus. Here on the Galaxy S3, we have our edit shortcuts. Choose our self-portrait, our flash. You can choose our shooting mode where we have the single shot, the burst shot, HDR, panorama, stuff like that. Got our scene mode, our timer, our resolution on here as well, our white balance, the outdoor visibility, anti-shake, auto contrast, reset. Now what's cool about the HTC Evo 4G LTE is that you can either right off the bat choose to record a video or take a picture. We took a picture there, boom, boom, boom. But on the Galaxy S3 we'll have to go left and it will take a second to actually go into the recording mode. But recording a video on each is fairly easy. Of course we can just tap the screen to focus when recording a video on each. We do have our autofocus enabled. Go back, we saved the video, we can access our gallery just in the bottom left of each of these. Our front-facing camera on the HTC Evo 4G LTE is a 1.3 megapixel. And our front-facing camera on the Samsung Galaxy S3 is a 1.9 megapixel front-facing camera. They both work very well. Okay, so we're on the Google homepage here to compare the browsers on each of these phones. Now, anyways, the HTC and the Galaxy S3 aren't going to have that much difference. It's got the same Android 4.0 browser framework. We just have a different skin over it. As we access our menu here on the HTC, we can request the desktop site, enable Flash Player, all that good stuff. Have our Downloads tab, our History tab. Do the same by pressing the menu here. Add new window. We can add bookmark. We can use our desktop view. We have to change our brightness and colors here because there is no master brightness. We'll go into the settings of each of the web browsers where we have the bandwidth management, advanced, accessibility, all the same stuff. Browsers don't tend to vary much. We can go to our labs. We have our quick controls on each. Go back. Now on Google we can bring our fingers in from the left, access our quick controls. Of course we have our add a tab, our tab manager, add a new web page, bookmarks, and then our settings once again. I like to turn labs off. It's not a functionality I use often. But anyways, the similarities between these two phones are actually pretty close, especially with the US variant of the Samsung Galaxy S3. It's going to come down to whether or not you actually want the quad-core or the dual-core version with the 2 gigabytes of RAM. Either phone will stand up to the HTC Evo 4G LTE. These phones knock heads pretty well. Just comes down to if you rather want a Samsung device or an HTC device. Both built very well. Now remember, you're going to be able to root the HTC, get some of that bloatware off there, and of course you can do the same for this Galaxy S3. Run a different launcher if you don't like the TouchWiz or the Sense UI. But basically these are two really good phones and they compare really well. So I suggest checking them out if you're in the market for a higher end smartphone that's modern and that will suit your needs. Anyways guys, I want you to stay tuned to AndroidAuthority.com. We've got a heck of a lot more where this is coming from.